Private Learoyd's story. And he told a tale. Chronicles of Gautama Buddha by Rudyard Kipling. Narrated by Robin Nixon. Far from the haunts of company officers who insist upon kit inspections, far from keen-nosed sergeants who sniff the pipe stuffed into the bedding roll, 2 miles from the tumult of the barracks, lies the trap. It is an old dry well, shadowed by a twisted pipal tree and fenced with high grass. Here, in the years gone by, did Private Ortheris establish his depot and menagerie for such possessions, dead and living, as could not safely be introduced to the barrack room. Here were gathered Houdin pullets and fox terriers of undoubted pedigree and more than doubtful ownership, for Ortheris was an inveterate poacher and preeminent among a regiment of neat-handed dog-stealers. Never again will the long lazy evenings return wherein Ortheris, whistling softly, moved surgeon-wise among the captives of his craft at the bottom of the well, when Learoyd sat in the niche, giving sage counsel on the management of tykes, and Mulvaney, from the crook of the overhanging pipal, waved his enormous boots in benediction above our heads, delighting us with tales of love and war, and strange experiences of cities and men. Ortheris landed in last in the little stuffed bird shop for which your soul longed. Learoyd back again in the smoky stone-ribbed north amid the clang of the Bradford looms. Mulvaney, grizzled, tender, and very wise Ulysses, sweltering on the earthwork of a central India line. Judge if I have forgotten old days in the trap. Ortheris, as Alice thinks he knows more than other folks, says she wasn't a real lady, but no bit of Eurasian. I don't gainsay as her colour was a bit duxy-like, but she was a lady. Why, she rode of a carriage, and good horses too, and her hair was that old you could see her face in it, and she wore diamond rings and a gold chain and silk and satin dresses, and more than cost a deal, for it isn't a cheap shop, and keeps enough for one pattern to fit a figure like hers. Her name was Mrs. D'Souza, and the way I come to be acquainted with her was along of our Colonel's lady's dog, Rip. I've seen a vast of dogs, but Rip was the prettiest picture of a clever fox terrier ever I set eyes on. He could do what you like, but spake the Colonel's lady set more store by him than if he'd been a Christian. She had bairns of her own, but they was England, and Rip seemed to get all to cuddling and petting as belonged to a bairn of good right. But Rip were a bit on a rover, and had a bit of breaking out of barracks like and trotting around the place as if he were a cantonment magistrate come round inspecting. The Colonel leathers him once or twice, but Rip didn't care and kept going his rounds with his tail a-wagging as if he were flag signalling to the world at large, as he was getting on nicely, thank you, and how's you saying? And then Colonel was no sort of hand-reared dog, tease him up, a rare clipper of a dog, and it's no wonder, young lady, and Mr. Sousa should take a fancy to him. There's one of 10 commandments says you won't covet your neighbour's ox, nor his jackass, but it doesn't say nought about his terrier dogs, and that's the reason why Mrs. D'Souza coveted Rip, though she went to the church regular, along with her husband, who was much darker, and if he hadn't had such a good coat to his back, you might have called him a black man, and not tell her nee nother. They said he handled his brass jute, and he had a rare lot on it. Well, you seen, when they teed Rip up, the poor old lad didn't enjoy very good health, so the Colonel's lady sends for me, as had a name for being knowledgeable about a dog, and axes what's ailing with him. Why, says I, he's getting mopes, and what he wants in his liberty and company like the rest of us will happen a rat or two, living him up. It's low, mum, says I. It's rats, but it's nature of a dog, and so is cutting round and meeting another dog or two and passing time of day, and having a bit of a turn-up with him like a Christian. So, she says a dog won't never fight, and no Christians ever fought. Then what's a soldier for, says I, and I explains to it the contrary qualities of a dog, and when you come to think of it, it's one of the curious things there is, for they learn to behave themselves like gentlemen born, fit for the company. They tell me Twitty herself is fond of a good dog, and knows one when she sees it, as well as anybody. Then, on the other hand, are throwing round the other cats and getting mixed up in all manners of blackguardy street rows and killing rats and fighting like devils. Colonel lady says, well, Learoyd, I don't agree with you, but you're right in a way of speaking, and I should like you to take Rip out a walking with you sometimes, but you won't let him fight, no chase cats, nor out horrid, and them was her very words. So, Rip and me goes out a walking of an evening, and he being a dog who did credit of a man, and he catches lots of rats, and we had a bit of a match on in old dry swimming bath at the back of cantonments, and it was none so long before he was bright as a button again. He had a way of flying at them big yellow pariah dogs as if he was Harrow off on a bow, and though his weight were out, he took him and suddenly they rolled over like skittles in an alley, and then he stretched after him as if he was a rabbit running. The same with cats. When he could get the cat, I get running. One evening, him and me was trespassing over a compound wall after one of them mongooses that he'd started on, and it was busy grubbing round a prickle bush, and when we looks up, there was Mrs. D'Souza with a parasol over her shoulder, and was watching us. "Oh my," she sings out, "there's a lovely dog. Would you let me stroke him, Mr. Soldier?" "Aye, he would, mum," says I, "for he's fond of ladies' company. Come here, Rip, and speak to this kind lady." And Rib, seeing as the mongoose he'd been getting clean away, comes up like gentleman he was, and never a hope was shy or awkward. "Oh, you're beautiful, you pretty dog," she says, clipping and chanting a speech in a way them sort of has of their own. "I would like a dog like you. You're so very lovely, so awfully pretty," and all that sort of talk. And a dog of sense maybe thinks nowt, although he bides by reason of his breeding. And then I makes him jump over me swagger cane and shake hands and beg and lie dead, and a lot of them tricks as ladies teaches dogs, though I don't hold it with me sen, for it's making a fool of a good dog to do such like. And at long length it comes out she's been throwing sheep's eyes and saying it at Rip for many a day. You see, her childer has grown up, and she'd not much to do, and we're allus fonder of a dog, so she asks me if I'd take something to drink, and we goes into drawing room with her husband, and was a sen, and they makes a good fuss of dog, and I has a bottle of ale, and he give me a handful of cigars. So I comed away, but old lass sings out, "Oh, Mr. Soldier, please come again and bring that pretty dog." I didn't let it on Colonel's lady about Mrs. D'Souza and Rep. He says nowt another, and I goes again, and every time there was a good drink and a handful of good smokes, and I told old lass a heap more about Rep than I'd ever heard, how he took lost prize at London Dog Show and cost £33, 4 shillings from the man that bred him, as his own brother was property of Prince of Wales, and he had a pedigree as long as ducks, and she lapped it all up, and we were never tired of admiring him. But when old lass took to giving me money, and I said that she were getting fair fond about the dog, I began to suspicion somewhat. Anybody may give a soldier the price of a pint in a friendly way, and there's no harm done. But when it comes to £5 slipped into your hand, sly-like, why, it's what lectioneering calls bribery and corruption. Especially when Mrs. D'Souza threw hints how the cold weather would soon be over, and she was going to Munsery Paha, and we was going to Rollpundy, and she would never see Rip any more, unless somebody she knowed on would be kind to her. So he tells Mulvaney and Orthris a tale through beginning to end. "Oh, 'tis larceny that wicked old lady mains," says the Irishman. "'Tis felony she's seducing you into me friend Learoyd, but I'll protect your innocence. I'll save you from the wicked wiles of that wealthy old woman, and I'll go with you this evening and speak to her words and truth of honesty. But Jock," says he, wagging his head, "'twas not like ye to keep all that good drink from them fine cigars to yourself, when Orthris here and me have been prowling round with throats as dry as lime kilns, and nothing to smoke but canteen plug. 'Twas a dirty trick to play on a comrade, for why should ye, Learoyd, be balancing yourself on the butt of a satin chair, as if Terence Mulvaney was not equal of anybody who trades in dirt? Let alone me," sticks in Orthris, "but that's like life. Them what's really fitted to decorate society get no show, while a blundering Yorkshireman like you—" "Nay," says I, "it's none at blundering Yorkshireman she wants. It's Rip. He's gentleman this journey." So next day, Mulvaney and Rip and me goes to Mrs. D'Souza's, and the Irishman being strangers and he were a bit shy at first. But you've heard Mulvaney talk, and you may believe as he fairly bewitched old lass. Well, she let out she wanted to take Rip away with her to Munsery Paha. Then Mulvaney changes his tune and acts her solemn like if she thought of consequences of getting two poor but honest soldiers sent to Andaman Islands. Mrs. D'Souza began to cry, so Mulvaney turned around, opened the tack and smoothed her down, allowing that Rip would be a vast better off in the hills than down in Bengal, and 'twas a pity he shouldn't go where he was so well beliked, and so he went on backing and felling and working up and told less. Well, she fell as if her life wasn't worth naught, as if she didn't have dog, and then all of a sudden he says, "But you shall have him, marm, for you've a feeling heart, not like this cold-bloody Yorkshireman, but it'll cost you not a penny less than 300 rupees. "Don't you believe him, mum?" says I. "The Colonel's lady would have took 500 for him." "He said she would," says Mulvaney. "It's not buying him, I mean, but for sake of this kind good lady, I'll do what I never dreamt to do in my life. I'll steal him." "Oh, don't say steal," says Mrs. D'Souza. "He shall have the happiest home. Dogs often get lost, you know, and then they stray, and he likes me, and I like him, and I never liked a dog yet, and I must have him. and if I got him at last minute, I could carry him off to once more Pahar, and nobody would never know. And now and again, Mulvaney looked across at me, and I thought I could make out what he was after. I concluded to take his lead. Well, Mum, I says, I never thought to come down to dog stealing, but if my comrade sees how it could be done to oblige a lady like you said, I'm not man to hold back, though it's a bad business I'm thinking, and 300 rupees is a poor set-off against chance of them damning islands as Mulvaney talks on. I'll make it 350, says Mrs. D'Souza, only let me have the dog. So we let her persuade us, and she takes Rip's measure there and then, and sent to Hamilton's to order a silver collar again at time when he was to be around, and was to be the day she set off from Monsieur Pahar. Sither Mulvaney, says I, when we was outside, you're never going to let her have Rip. And would you disappoint a poor old woman, says he, she shall have Rip. And where's he to come, though, says I. Learoyd, my man, he sings out, you're a pretty man of your inches and a good comrade, but your head is made of duff. Asn't our friend Arthur is a taxidermist and a real artist with his nimble white fingers? And what's a taxidermist but a man who can trade skins? Do you mind the white dog that belongs to the canteen sergeant? About says to him, about that's lost half his time in snarling the rest. He shall be lost for good now. And do you mean that she's the spit of a shape and size of the colonel's baron, that his tail is an inch too long, and he has none of the colour that diversifies the rail rip, and his temper is that of his master and worse? But what is an inch on a dog's tail? And what, to a professional like Uthras, is a few ring-streaked spots of black and brown and white, and nothing at all, at all. And then we meets Uthras, and that little man, being sharp as a needle, seed his way through business in a minute, and he went to work a-practising hair dyes from the very day, beginning on some white rabbits he had, and then he drawed old Rip's markings on the back of the white commissariat's bullock, so as to get his hand in and be sure of his colours, shading off brown into black as natural as life. If Rip had a fault, it was too much marking, but it was strangely regular, and Uthras settled himself to make a first-rate job on it when he got handed a canteen sergeant's dog. There never was such a dog as thought for bad temper, and it did not get no better when his tail had to be fettled an inch and a half shorter, but they may talk of the Royal Academies as they like. I never seed a bit of animal painting to beat the copy as Uthras made of Rip's marks. Well, the picture itself was snarling all the time, and trying to get to Rip standing there to be copied as good as gold. Uthras allus he had as much conceit in himself as he would lift a balloon, and he was so pleased with his sim Rip, he were for taking him to Mrs. D'Souza before she went away. But Mulvaney and me stopped that, knowing Uthras' work, though never so clever, was nobbut skin deep. And at last Mrs. D'Souza fixed day for starting him in Surrey Pahar. We was to take Rep to station in a basket and hand him over just when they was ready to start, and then she'd give us brass, and was agreed on. And me word, it were high time she were off, for them hair dyes upon Kerr's back took a vast of pain to keep the right colour, though Uthras spent a matter of 7 rupees, 6 annas, in the best druggist shops in Calcutta. But the canteen sergeant was looking for his dog everywhere, and we been tied up to be temper got worn, however. It were the evening when train started through Hurrah, and we helped Mrs. D'Souza with about 60 boxes, and then we gave it a basket, and Uthras, for pride of his work, asked us to let him come along with us, and he couldn't help lifting the lid and showing to Kerr as he lay coiled up. Oh, says the old lass, the beauty, how sweet he looks. And just then the beauty snarled and showed his teeth. So Mulvaney shuts down the lid and says, you'll be careful, Mum, when you take him out. Is this a custom to be travelling by railway? And he's sure to want his royal mistress and his friend Learoyd, so I'll make allowance for his feelings at first. She would do all that and more for the dear good Rep. She would not open the basket till he were miles away, for fear anybody should recognise him. And we were real good and kind soldier men, and we were, and she hands me a bundle of notes. And then comes up a few of her relations and friends to say goodbye. Not more than 75 there wasn't, and we cuts away. I would come to 350 rupees, that's what I can scuss and tell you, but we melted it. It was share and share alike, for Mulvaney said, if Learoyd got hold of Mrs. D'Souza first, sure, 'twas I that remembered the sergeant's dog just in the nick of time, and Uthras was the artist of genius that made a work of art out of that ugly piece of ill nature. Yet by way of thank-offering that I was not led into felony by that wicked old woman, I'll send a trifle to Father Victor for the poor people he's always begging for. But me and Uthras, he being Cockney, and I being pretty far north, did not see it the same way. We'd gotten the brass, and we meant to keep it, and so we did, for a short time. No, we never did heard a word more till last. Our regiment went to Pindy, and the canteen sergeant, he got himself another tyke instead of the one he got lost so regular, and was lost for good at last.